Good morning, everybody. It is Man Coverage. This is Knoxville, Nate and James Bonneville coming to you live, in effect, on Man Coverage. Follow us on Twitter, or X, as it is now known, at Man_coverage. Also, please check us out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Man Coverage 2075. College football's back, week 0. James, how the hell are you, buddy?
I'm good. That was interesting yesterday, that's for sure.
Yeah,
You look at the week 0 game, they should look like they're throwaway games, but they said a lot yesterday, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I don't take too much away from week 0, week 1, but I think you can't ignore what your eyes see. I mean, you can't just ignore what happens on the field because there's a lot of takeaways from all these games. I think we should start over in Ireland.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Navy. You know what? This game said one thing more to me than anything else, and that is that they should have never fired Ken Malatolona, whatever his name is, the previous football coach who I have tremendous respect for. And I thought that was ridiculous, the way that his tenure was ended in the locker room last year after the Navy versus Army game, which let's be honest was a pretty good football game, and went back and forth, and Army ended up winning. And then they went in and fired his ass in the locker room. And to me, it looked like a team that was poorly coached, and it looked like a team that was not ready to play and was overmatched in all areas, which, let's be honest, the academies are always overmatched, but they're so disciplined that they find a way to compete with the Notre Dames of the world. This team yesterday didn't really compete. Am I crazy to think that?
No. I mean, literally from the get-go, I mean, you sat there and watched, and Joe Alton, that offensive line, really overpowered. I mean, let's be honest. Navy's offensive line was probably 50 pounds bigger than probably the average that Navy had across their defensive line. I mean, they blocked incredibly well, but name me a Notre Dame team that doesn't have good blocking. I mean, they were running Audric Estime a fair number of times, and they were getting at will yards left and right. And heck, after the first couple touchdowns, they had to start throwing because they realized, oh yeah, we got Sam Hartman there, and their receiving core is a negative. But I mean, if you thought going into that game Navy was going to win, you were sorely mistaken. I mean, quite frankly, the game should have been much worse, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and that's my point. I mean, did you think that? Do you think that looked like Navy's team from the last 5-10 years? I mean, I didn't think so.
No. I mean, but I will say there were things that honestly, even though they only scored 3 points, I was actually that there were some things I can walk away from where I was kind of impressed. I mean, you look at where their schedule is in the New American. I mean, they have a legitimate shot of still making a bowl game, even though they got their doors blown off yesterday, just because the offense they run. I think their quarterback play has got to get significantly better because, I mean, if there's one thing, if I'm Marcus Freeman walking out of that game, is if either one of those quarterbacks had anything on the ball, there were times where wide receivers were just plain wide open. And I sat there thinking to myself, I'm like, granted, Notre Dame's defensive backs traditionally, I mean, they'll pull safeties, but corners, I mean, they have not produced corners in a long, long time.
No, it's been a minute. And, this is a team in Navy that was 3 for 7 passing. I mean, Notre Dame's not going to face another team like this. The good news is the Irish have a pretty difficult schedule this year. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They host Ohio State. They play Clemson. They play USC. 3 teams that they're going to play against are teams that a lot of people have picked to make the college football playoff. So we'll figure out what Notre Dame is and what Notre Dame has. But I don't think yesterday's a real good barometer for where this team is
Oh
now.
God, no. I mean, honestly, I think your first real test is going to be at North Carolina State in 3
Yeah,
weeks.
I agree. I agree. Going down to Raleigh is not an easy out. I mean,
No.
you're not just going to walk down there and push those guys around. They're well coached. They're used to beating teams they're not supposed to beat. They're used to playing big games. I have no doubt that North Carolina State will give this team a good game. And this game in particular, the biggest thing we can say is obviously Sam Hartman's fine. We knew he was a good quarterback. He's played college football for 9 years. We know that he's good, and he looked pretty good yesterday. But the receiving core for Notre Dame, I guess they can be excited about Jaden Greathouse, the freshman. He had 3 catches for 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looked pretty good. But they moved Chris Tyree, who I thought was a really good running back. They've moved him to wide receiver because of the lack of depth in the position. And, you mentioned Estime, who I love as a running back. He's like a faster Jerome Bettis. I really love watching that guy play, but I always liked the combination of Estime and Tyree. And now that combination's gone because you had to use him at wideout. What did you think about these wide receivers? And what do you think about the Notre Dame offense as it stands after yesterday?
Well, honestly, you really can't tell. I mean, the one thing I noticed during one of the interviews that Marcus Freeman gave during the game was, and this was a shot at their previous quarterbacks from last year, is now they have a quarterback under center that can actually read the defense before the ball is snapped. Yeah. And if that's not a rip on Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner, I don't know what is. I mean, that's a shot across the bow, pretty hardcore. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a reason why Sam Hartman is the all-time leader in ACC history in touchdown passes, and he's a great quarterback. No questions asked. But I mean, I really don't. We're going to need more sample size to understand, where the receiving core at, where's their defensive backs at. I mean, this looks like a real traditional Notre Dame team, and when they have a better quarterback, they usually end up somewhere in that 8-4 range as a floor.
Yeah, and I don't know if next week will give us a ton of information either, because they are welcoming my boy Eddie George and the Tennessee State squad into town. And that's, what, I got to give Eddie a lot of credit going to Notre Dame and playing there. That's a huge big deal for their program. And
absolutely.
Should be a really good test to see where they are. But I don't know how that – I'm not sure that really helps Notre Dame at all. These first 2 games, I don't know if that it really gets them prepared for going down to Raleigh. Do you?
No, not at all. I mean, granted, I tip my hat to Eddie George because, one, this is a great opportunity for his players, but also a chance for him to showcase his team on the national stage to help him from recruiting. Because let's be honest, Tennessee State, until he was there, really wasn't talked about very much. And now that Eddie's there, you're seeing more and more being talked about that program as a whole. But I mean, I kind of was hoping Notre Dame would have a little bit more of a tune-up before they go into the NC State game. Because, I mean, the one thing about Dave Dornan is it's the same kind of issue that Notre Dame has. They're pretty good on the line of scrimmage. And if they shut down that running game for Notre Dame, the NC State shutting down Notre Dame's running game, that could be a very interesting game.
I concur, and I'm looking forward to that one. But, it was what it was. I thought it was cool. Yeah. Obviously, we're here today in the Ireland, in the stadium, and I thought it was a really cool atmosphere. And I think it's fun. I like it when Notre Dame travels abroad and plays a game in Ireland like they did Boston College a couple of years ago, and then obviously playing Navy here yesterday. I thought it was pretty cool, but we'll have to wait a couple weeks to see what this Irish is. I can say the quarterback position has been upgraded tremendously. Drew Pine, Tyler Buckner, not bad players and not knocking them, but Sam Hartman is an upgrade, which is what we've said, since it was announced that he was going there. I'll give credit to Marcus Freeman for going and getting him. I mean, they've had trouble. They've got a quarterback coming in next year, but they've had a little bit of difficulty recruiting quarterbacks. And he used the portal and hit a home run here. It's going to help give them a chance in every game that they're going to play now that they've got somebody that can toss it around, right?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, you look at guys like Tyler Buckner and Drew Pine. I mean, these guys weren't some lowly two-star coming out of whatever high school. I mean, these guys were very highly recruited, high four-star kids. And it just goes to show you over the 4, 5, 6 years that you're in college, thanks to COVID, just because you're a high four-star coming out of high school does not guarantee you anything. I mean, I could give you plenty of examples. Yeah, Graham Mertz, I'm talking to you in Florida. Just because you have a highly recruited kid coming out of high school doesn't mean you're going to be a great college quarterback by any stretch of the imagination.
No. I mean, we've seen it time and time again where guys are rated 4 stars, 5 stars, whatever stars, and they get into the moment in big time college football and they're just not good. And high school football and college football are two completely different things.
Yeah.
And, you never really know what a kid's going to look like till he steps on the field. And I think that's one of the reasons they went out and got Sam Hartman is that they wanted to get they wanted a known commodity, when, Marcus Freeman, he's got big shoes to fill. I mean, I know some people were happy. Some of the Notre Dame fans were happy or claimed to be happy that their coach was leaving and going to LSU. But let's be honest, man, that guy won a ton of football games while he was at Notre Dame. And obviously I'm talking about Brian Kelly.
I mean, look at everywhere he's been. The guy's been a winner. I mean, prior to Notre Dame at Cincinnati, prior to Cincinnati, Central Michigan, prior to that, Grand Valley State. I mean, you may not like him, but the guy's a winner. And it was only a matter of time at LSU. I think he was a little ahead of schedule. But honestly, he's going to always have a strong line of scrimmage play because it always starts there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I will give Coach Freeman some credit. The defense looked pretty good yesterday. I mean, they held that Navy run game in check. I mean, Navy ran for 128 yards all day. And honestly, if you can hold Navy to 128 when they complete 3 passes, you're going to beat them pretty good.
Well,
and
I really like Notre Dame's linebacking core. I mean, Jack Kaiser, who else they got? I was just really impressed of how really dedicated they were to their gap coverage in that game, because that's a game where you can fall into some traps really quick.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be. I was listening to the interview with Coach Freeman before the game, and he was like, this is a game where discipline really comes into the forefront. I mean, you want your guys to be able to key their reads and get there quick, but this is a team where you really have to know what you're doing, and you have to take care of you may not make a tackle all day, but if you're covering up your gap, you're helping the team. And JD Bertrand, the middle linebacker, Jack Kaiser, those guys played well.
Bertrand, that's the kid I was thinking of. Yeah,
Bertrand looked pretty good. I was pretty impressed with him. And then obviously seeing Javonte Jean-Baptiste out there for Notre Dame was very weird for me, because that's a guy that's played for Ohio State for 5 years. And seeing him out there for Notre Dame, I mean, this is a guy who's he played he played a lot for Ohio State, and he walked right in and became a starter for the Irish. And Howard Cross, the third, he looked pretty good at nose tackle. So I liked what I saw out of this defense, but it's all going to come down to what they've got in their secondary, and we didn't really get to see that yesterday with only 3 passes being completed. So we'll have to check that secondary out with somebody else. And I don't know if Tennessee State's going to be the team that exposes them, but it may be NC State. What about over in Los Angeles yesterday? We had kind of a late game. Luckily, it was on the Saturday night, so I could actually stay up past 9 o'clock, because normally these days I don't make it past 9-ish. With having to get up so early to take my daughter to kindergarten. So thank God this game was on the weekend, so I was able to watch it a little bit. Looked kind of like the team from last year, to be honest with you. Offense, scoring some points, moving the ball, but their defense still looks a lot like what it looked like last year. I mean, Caleb Williams We knew he was good coming out of high school from the DC area, very highly recruited, signed with Oklahoma, took off with Lincoln Riley. Dude can play, man. I mean, even on broken plays, he looked good. But, the quarterback, Cordero from San Jose State, he tossed 3 touchdowns. And, the secondary for USC looked lost at times. What did you think about this game? What did you think about the Trojans in week 0?
I honestly, offensively impressive, but let's be honest, did you not expect that? I think the one thing that really hit me hard watching this game, that really impressed me that I didn't expect to happen this quick, were 2 freshman receivers, and that's Deuce Robinson and Zach Branch. I mean, the Bishop Gorman product, Zach Branch. I mean, this kid reminds me so much of Reggie Bush with his hips and his quickness. I mean, if I'm playing college fantasy football, I'm not gonna lie, I'm strongly taking a hard look at him because he looked amazing yesterday. And then Deuce Robinson. I mean, they come out this is a very deep receiving core, but you got 2 freshmen right out of the gates. I mean, Deuce Robinson, 6'6", 225 out of Pinnacle in Phoenix. I mean, this is a very interesting receiving core, and they're young. And I think that's something to look for. Now, on the defensive side, I mean, the old Hawaii product, Cordero, playing quarterback there. I mean, he's a legit quarterback. But, man, they were running up and down the field on USC's defense like they weren't even there. I mean, yeah. I've been saying it for some times with Alex Greenwich. I mean, after he left Washington State back, 8 years ago, He had that year at Ohio State, which really wasn't that great. And then has been at Oklahoma and USC ever since. And I'm like, how has this guy held on to his job? Because his defenses have not been good. Like, no, I don't understand it.
No, I don't get it either. And yesterday was not much better. But yeah, talking about Bishop Gorman for a second. Good Lord, do those guys put players? I mean, Cedric Tillman from Tennessee is from Bishop Gorman. Dorian Thompson Robinson is from Bishop Gorman. They had like 4 or 5 guys that were drafted this last year. And they have guys that go all over the country. I mean, think about Tate Martell. I mean, I know he didn't work out, but he was a pretty good high school quarterback. And DeMarco Murray is from there. Ronnie Stanley, Nick Gates. The list goes on and on. Haskell Garrett. I mean, Brevin Jordan.
Snoop Dogg's kid was a receiver, a high 4-star receiver out of there before he decided not to play football. I mean, he went to UCLA. I mean, I understand why he didn't. Maybe just didn't have the passion for it. But I mean, you look at the program as a whole. Holy crap! Yeah,
they're pretty good, and this kid might be the best of them, which is why I was talking about it. It's kind of scary, but gosh, I hate watching this because it freaks me out thinking that maybe Caleb Williams will win 2 Heismans in a row. Don't want to see that. Anything but that, please, Lord. But this offense is good. Lincoln Riley, one of the best play callers in college football, if not the best. We'll have to give them credit for that, but this defense looked lost. They look better, like the eyeball test when they were walking on the field. I'm like, man, they look like they got more dogs on this team, like, some big dudes. But I'm not sure that I'm impressed with what I saw from their defense as of, week 0. Can they get better? I mean, what's the ceiling for this team?
I mean, honestly, I don't see anybody even coming close to even touching them until they got to go to Notre Dame on October 14th. I mean, their schedule is not tough up front, but on the back end, it gets a lot harder. I mean, next week they got Nevada. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're good. Nevada and then Stanford.
Yeah, I mean, a depleted Arizona State team, a Colorado team with no depth. I mean, Arizona is probably the toughest team on their schedule in the first 7 games or 6 games.
Yeah, and they're not good either. So that's what I'm talking about is he's going to rack up stats and rack up Heisman points pretty much all year. I mean, their schedule is probably one of the weakest that I've ever seen USC have, and maybe that's a testament to the Pac-12 as it stands right now, which is not a real great conference. Then they're throwing San Jose State and Nevada on there. Stanford's a joke. Arizona State, not good. Already, they imposed a bowl ban for their team this year. Oh, that real tough punishment considering they weren't going to make a bowl anyway.
Yeah.
And Colorado, we know about them. Dion's there. It's going to take them a couple years considering they went 1-11 last year. And so, yeah, the first game that we'll see USC even be tested really is October 14th, where they play Notre Dame in South Bend. So that'll be good. And then they play Utah the week after.
That's where things start getting concerning, because I mean, if USC can stay healthy, but I mean, especially on their defensive side, if they have if the way their defense played yesterday, if they start getting injuries there, man, I would be very concerned about that back half of that schedule. I mean, even though Cal offensively is horrendous, their defense is legit. Yeah. I mean, it's pick your poison on the way out. And I mean, if he's going to win another Heisman, that's people remember you come November.
Yeah, no, it's going to be about how they end the season, but I'm just saying he's going to rack up stats.
Oh, he's going to rack up a ton of stats.
These first 4 or 5 games. I mean, San Jose State, Nevada, Stanford, Arizona State, Colorado, Arizona. Those first 6 games, he's going to just pick people apart and have his way with them. There's no doubt about that. But that's their issue on defense is A, they're not that great to begin with, and then B, the depth. I as you mentioned, I worry about that as well. Lots of transfers on this team too.
Yeah,
and you just don't know what these guys are going to look like till you get them out there in your system and see what happens. But I don't know. They gave up a lot of big plays was what kind of surprised me from San Jose State. I wasn't really expecting the big chunks, but there was a 57-yard pass or a 57-yard run, excuse me. There was a 30-yard run. There was another 20-yard run. There was a 30-yard pass, a 20-yard pass, a 20-yard pass. I mean, just big chunk plays against a team that, isn't really that talented. No offense to the San Jose State faithful.
I mean, honestly, if I'm an SC fan, I'm more concerned about next year when they go into the Big Ten, because if you don't have good line of scrimmage play, I'm sorry, you're in trouble. You got to be good on the line of scrimmage, especially defensively, because I mean, how often do you win track meets in the Big Ten? Not very often.
No, you've got to be able to hold the line of scrimmage, and you got to be able to run the football consistently and stop the run. And, they gave up 200 yards rushing to San Jose State.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good. At least in my eyes, that is not good. So we'll see what happens. There was a little, I don't know if you've seen the brawl from Kansas State on the internet yet. But if you have not, go to Barstool Sports and watch the Kansas State back to school brawl. It's pretty cool. Just a little side note for you there, folks. Get on the internet, check it out. watch the Kansas State fans beating the crap out of each other yesterday. That was pretty cool. So obviously it was week 0. Those were the 2 big games. There were some other games. Obviously, Jacksonville State beat UTEP 17-14. Big one there. UMass got their first road win, against a FBS opponent. Would you say since 1984?
Yeah.
And beat New Mexico State. San Diego State, our Aztecs, who we love so much, took care of business against OU. La Tech took out FIU, and then Vanderbilt struggled against the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Let's talk Vanderbilt for a second. You were a big proponent of Coach over there coming in and turning this program around. What do you think about where Vanderbilt is at? What did you think about them yesterday against Hawaii?
I honestly, I thought this was a step back for them. I mean, it's. I mean, you're starting to see Timmy Chang get the old June Jones system back into place, and they're a lot farther along than I expected them to be. What concerned me most was how Hawaii's defensive line was able to get into Vanderbilt's backfield. If I'm Coach Lee, I am really working hard on their front line, offensive line, to shore that up because I mean, halfway through through the first half, they had seven. Hawaii had 7 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, that shouldn't be happening. That's not what Hawaii is known for, and you're allowing them to get back on the field. And you know, thank God, they've really upped their game. Vanderbilt has as far as recruiting, and they look a lot better offensively. They have a lot better at the skill position. Jaden McGowan really showed out yesterday, and he and Will Shepherd. But to give up 28 at home and really give up a considerable amount of yards defensively, I mean, yeah, they won, but I think there's a lot of work to do before they walk in next week.
Well, I mean, if Braden Shager didn't throw 2 interceptions, we could be talking about a different outcome in this game. I mean, we really could. And not to mention, there was a long play from Vanderbilt. I believe, was it a kickoff return?
Yeah.
Taken back to the house, or was it a kickoff return?
It was a kickoff return.
Yeah. So, the game's 7-6. Hawaii's up by 1, kicks off, and they give up a long kickoff return. I believe it was 97 yards, and that was your boy Jaden McGowan, who you already mentioned.
Yeah.
That guy's special. He's got some get up to him. 97-yard kickoff return. He had 6 catches for 72 yards at 12 yards per catch average. I was impressed by him. I was even pretty impressed by AJ Swain, the quarterback for Vanderbilt. 19 for 30, not great, but 3 touchdowns, no picks, threw for 260 yards almost. I was pretty impressed by him, but I would be concerned if I nearly lost to Hawaii at home.
Well, I mean, they went 23 to 44 rushing. Yeah. I mean, when you have a 1.9 average against Hawaii, that's a problem. That's a severe problem on the line of scrimmage.
Well, and they got 21 yards on one play.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, one rush, they had 21 yards. That means they had 23 rushing yards the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That's concerning. And let's be honest, Vanderbilt's schedule is a little bit tougher than USC's. They have to play in the SEC, so they've got a couple of weeks to, test themselves and maybe get better against Alabama, A&M, Wake Forest, UNLV. But then they play Kentucky, Missouri, Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn, South Carolina, Tennessee. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Kentucky, Missouri, Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn, South Carolina, Tennessee to end your season. They're gonna have to get a lot better real quick, don't you think?
Honestly, before going into last night's game, I literally thought they had a really good shot of winning at least 3 of those conference games.
What do you think now?
I struggle. I really struggle.
Who are they going to beat in the SEC is my question.
I would put – I mean, right now, I don't know. I mean, before, I thought Missouri, possibly at Florida, possibly Auburn, but now I wouldn't pick any of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Anything else in any of the other games yesterday that stood out to you that you want to talk about?
I want to talk about that Jacksonville State game against UTEP. There's no way Jacksonville State should have won that game. I mean, they had a 23% success rate. Their quarterback, I mean, if you're watching any film on Jacksonville State and you're playing them in the future, stick everybody and the freaking water boy in the box and force them to throw, because there were guys that were blatantly wide open that the quarterback was overthrowing him by a mile. And that was, 23% success rate and you win. UTEP outgained him at the half by 100 yards.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell they even lost that game. It's just shocking to me. But it was just, Zion Webb has got to step up his game. He was 10 for 20 for 67 yards, and that's being kind. The UMass and New Mexico State game, I feel bad for every freaking degenerate gambler out there who took the under on that game when 48 points were scored in the fourth quarter. There were more, both teams had more yards in the fourth quarter than they did in the first through third quarters combined.
It was 13-10 at the end of the third. 13-10 UMass at the end of the third quarter.
And this is Don Brown and Jerry Kill we're talking about. They were playing a Don Brown, Jerry Kill game for 3 quarters. And did both of them just not come to the fourth quarter? Because, this is crazy. Granted, UMass looks infinitely better than they did last year. Now, am I talking bowl game? No. But, the quarterback play for New Mexico State, Diego Pavia really did not show up well. He was offensively just a disaster yesterday, especially in the first 3 quarters. Curtis Rourke, I think him getting hurt in the first quarter against San Diego State in the Ohio-San Diego State game really hurt the Bobcats yesterday. I think San Diego State's offense really lacked. Their defense, as usual, still is legit. So... But that's going to be, if you're going to play San Diego State, it's always going to be a street fight. So,
yeah, there's no doubt about that. Let's look ahead a little bit to next week. Let's talk, or I guess not next.
Yeah, we'll talk about next week here. We've got an interesting slate of games coming up here. Finally, we get out of the week 0 games. We're finally getting into real games as a whole. You're going to see some games starting on Thursday night. You're going to see some games like, honestly, Minnesota versus versus Nebraska. The Gophers are 7.5-point favorites. I think the over/under on this is kind of low at 43.5 because I think you're going to see the Gophers be throwing a lot more than they usually have in the past. I personally like the Gophers in this game, but go figure, I'm kind of a homer that way.
Are you?
I know, hard to believe.
I can't believe that.
Florida-Utah game is going to be intriguing. Don't you think next Thursday?
That's the one that I want to talk about. That is the game that I'm looking at. We all remember last year. That was kind of, that game got Anthony Richardson drafted 4th.
Yeah.
That was his best game all year long. And a big win, but let's be honest, they knocked a pass down in the end zone to win that game.
Yeah.
And now they've got to travel to Salt Lake City and play a Utah team that's got Cam Rising at quarterback for year 9. We know that, coach will have them ready to go. 6.5 is the line on this game. I might take Utah, to be honest with you. I know there's a lot of talk about how great Florida is supposed to be or how much better they are going to be. But I'll believe it when I see it. I like Utah in this game, and I like them covering that 6.5 spread. Am I nuts thinking that?
Well, I thought Utah was going to go into Gainesville and just slap Florida around silly last year. But the one thing you traditionally look back at Kyle Whittingham teams is they never start off fast. They start off cryptically slow at some points. And that's my worry is Utah comes in and starts off cryptically slow. Now, it sounds like Cam Rising's playing, but how healthy is he? Nobody knows. But Graham Mertz is the quarterback at Florida. You're giving a touchdown to Utah right there just by putting him stepping foot on the field. I agree with you. I take Utah. And I look at the over under. I think Utah. I think they're going to cover the over on that game too, as well. Don't you?
I do. I do. I like Utah a lot in this game. I thought they would win last year, and I picked them to win last year. They kind of let me down, but as I mentioned, you know, Florida made a play on the last play of the game and knocked the ball down in the end zone, or else Utah would have won that one. So I did. I missed a little bit of your Minnesota Nebraska synopsis. I do want to talk a touch about that game. I know you've already chosen the Gophers, and you're obviously always high on them. But I do want to talk about Nebraska. This game's 8:00 game on Fox. This is a big game, I think, for both of these teams. First game in the Matt Rule era. What do you expect to see from Nebraska come Thursday night?
That's hard to explain. I mean, their depth chart has been kind of questionable at best. But Jeff Sims at quarterback. I mean, I think people, unless you're a diehard follower of football, you may not know Jeff Sims from his work at Georgia Tech, where he was one of the few bright spots during the Jeff Collins era. I mean, his recruitment to Atlanta was kind of a shocker when they stole him from Florida State at the last moment.
Yeah.
The problem is there's a lot of turnover there. And you look at past Matt Rule experience when he's been at Temple, when he's been at Baylor, year one's a transition period. And in some ways, I look at Nebraska and like Matt Rule as being kind of overrated. He hasn't beat a ranked opponent since his time at Temple.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, they've given him a lot of money. Hell, Carolina paid him a lot of money to suck there.
Yeah.
And, this guy's made a ton of cash, and he's won some football games, but what has he really won? Who has he really beat? That question comes in my mind. And let's be honest, Scott Frost was a really good coach and really highly thought of till he got to Nebraska. I mean, lots of people have come in to run the Cornhusker program and, were successful elsewhere and have been unable to replicate what Tom Osborne did, hell, what Frank Solich did.
Yeah.
They ran his ass out of town, and that program has not been the same since. And that's why I'm just kind of interested to see of what you feel like this team might be able to accomplish in year one under Matt Rule. What should we expect from year one? I mean, do you think 5 wins is possible? Do you think they can win 5 or 6 games and go to a bowl? I mean, is that out of this realm of possibility?
I think if they go to 6 wins, I would consider that a successful season. I
agree.
I just don't know if they'll be able to get to 6. I really don't. I mean, I look at their schedule. I mean, honestly, the bigger barometer for me would be in a couple weeks at Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to be able to impose their will. And I seriously, I look at this roster, and I think Minnesota's going to beat them. I mean, I think this is not going to be your traditional Minnesota team, because you look at no Ibrahim. Ibrahim's gone. I mean, you're not going to see 30 carries out of Ibrahim ever again. You're going to see a combination of Sean Tyler, Zach Evans, Bryce Williams, Darius Taylor running the ball. Sean Tyler ran extremely well in the MAC, but this receiving core is what people should be looking for. I mean, Daniel Jackson really showed out down the stretch. Plus, you got Brevin Spann-Ford, one of the top tight ends in the country. I think you're going to see more of a 19 offense than you did the 20 to 22 offenses.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very interested to see those 2 games on Thursday night. Those are probably the 2 that stick out to me the most are the Florida-Utah game and the Nebraska-Minnesota game, probably the ones that I'm most interested in. And then we've got some other games coming up on Friday as well. Central Michigan travels to East Lansing to play Michigan State. And then we got Miami versus Miami. Miami of Ohio versus Miami of Florida. The battle for Miami. That's actually probably, I think, going to be a little closer. That line is 17.5 right now. I don't, after what I saw last year, Middle Tennessee State kicking the crap out of Miami at home. I don't know if I'd be throwing 20-point lines out for the Canes, but very interesting that Miami is playing Miami. And then, honestly, Louisville, Georgia Tech, I'm somewhat
Yes.
interested in on Friday night. I want to see what Louisville looks like with their new coach, and I want to see what Georgia Tech looks like. What do you think about those games Friday? Any of those pique your interest at all?
Well, I mean, I think the Michigan State Miami games both are who are you as a team? Because honestly, I think people had much higher hopes for Mario Cristobal in Coral Gables, and it was a colossal failure last year, and they made changes to the system. But I mean, Miami of Ohio is, they're a good MAC program.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting to see how they handle that, because if they get punched in the face, Miami Hurricanes last year just kind of laid down and took it.
Yeah.
They got to come out fast. And same with Michigan State. I mean, you lose Peyton Thorne, you lose Keon Coleman to Florida State. I mean, I don't know what Michigan State is right now and where they're going as a program. I mean, Central Michigan is not the same when they lost Lou Nichols, but I mean, we shall see. I mean, McIntyre's a good coach, and he'll get them up for that game. I still think the Sparty wins, but I don't know what to expect from either one of those games. If I was a betting man, I would stay as far away from those two games as humanly possible.
Yeah. Do you think that Michigan State overreacted when they went out
Yes.
and paid all that money
Yes.
to a coach that was wasn't that year one?
Just after year one. Yeah.
Yeah. After year one, they gave this guy, I mean, I like him. I do. I got no problems with the guy. But I do have a problem with, I guess they were worried about him leaving. I don't really know.
Well,
but I think that they might have made a colossal mistake, because it doesn't really matter what they do this year. They can't get rid of their coach.
This all goes back to, 1999, 2000, where back then a second-time coach by the name of, you may have heard of him before, Nick Saban.
Who's that?
Yeah. He's gone on to do a couple other works.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him. Well, he was LSU came calling, and he came back to Michigan State and said, you match their offer, I'll stay. He did not want to leave East Lansing, because, I mean, you look back then, man, they were flying. I mean, they brought in Jeff Smoker, high profile, Chuck Rogers, TJ Duckett. I mean, they were recruiting probably better than Michigan State's ever recruited. And the athletic director was like, hey, if you want to go, you can go. All they had to do was pay him $1 million, and they wouldn't do it. And they've been paying for it ever since, because people forget the coach after him was Bobby Williams. That didn't exactly turn out too well. And after that was John L. Smith. And we all know how John L. Smith turned out. So I sit there and I'm like, I think they overreacted. They got scared, because after what happened with Saban and LSU being involved, I think they overbought.
Yeah, let's just put this in perspective right now. Nick Saban makes $9.9 million annually. Yeah. Mel Tucker makes $9.5 million. How the hell does Mel Tucker make almost the same amount of money as a guy who's won 8 freaking titles?
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't understand that. And he did a great job in year one. Do you give him a bonus? Yeah, okay. But locking him up for 10 years and $95 million,
yeah,
I just think that's a mistake. And I don't know, it hasn't looked good there. And I'm interested to see what that game looks like. Michigan State is favored at home by 14.5, but Central Michigan is, obviously I'm not 100% sure what they're going to look like this year, but that's a program that's had some success and been a stalwart in the MAC.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look who's coaching there. I mean, it's not like that guy had has been around the block. He's coached at Power 5 schools before. So I don't know. The Louisville game though, I'm a huge Jeff Brom fan. I mean, what he did at Purdue was gosh darn amazing. And now he gets to go back home to a job where, I mean, unless he really pulls a Scott Frost, he's never going to get fired. I mean, come on. And he brings Jack Plummer. I mean, Jack Plummer knows his system. I mean, if people are going to complain, well, he came from Cal. Yeah, but before that, he was at Purdue. And he knows Jeff Brom's system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what that team looks like without Malik Cunningham, too. I mean, hell, he was the quarterback there for 10 years.
Yeah, he was on the Christian Laettner plan for sure.
I mean, I don't really remember Louisville football before him. And I got to be honest, I think Malik Cunningham was underrated. I've watched him play in the preseason this year for the New England Patriots. And hell, he's looked just as good as Mac Jones when he's been out there. That might be a slight exaggeration, but he's looked like a really good football player. And so, Jack Plummer's got a lot to live up to. Is that Jake Plummer's son, by the way?
No, it's not.
I know.
Not.
I'm joking.
It's funny. I thought the same thing too for the longest time until Jake Plummer actually made a comment on a video I was watching about how they're not even related. But yeah, I mean, what's funny is Jack Plummer's from Gilbert, Arizona too.
That's why I did think that for a while because I saw he was from Arizona and I'm like, oh, that's Jake's kid. And then everybody's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk. We don't usually talk third string quarterbacks here, but I don't know if you noticed that Harrison Bailey is the third string quarterback for Louisville. This guy was one of the highest rated quarterbacks that Tennessee's recruited in a long time. There was calls for him to be the starter all around here for years, for the 2 years he was here, I guess, wanting him to be the guy. Couldn't win the job last year. Where was he at? UNLV?
Yeah.
And now he's the third stringer on Louisville. What the hell happened to that guy?
Heck, there are so many stories about that. I mean, heck, Tate Martell. I mean, I'd like to know where Tate Martell actually got his degree from because I think he at one point was at every Division I university throughout the entire process. I mean, what? Ohio State, Miami, UNLV, I'm forgetting one. Like, he was like somewhere every freaking year.
He played at a different school, and that's what I have a problem with these days is the guys that, go to 4 schools in 4 years. I mean, he went to Ohio State, Miami, UNLV. I think he retired after that, actually.
Yeah.
He was going to go somewhere else and then ended up he committed to another school, but ended up not playing anymore. But I mean, I kind of makes me think of him when I think of Harrison Bailey because he was I live here in Knoxville and he was very highly thought of, at least from the people that don't know much about football. They wanted him in that game immediately, and it never really panned out for him. So now he's third string at Louisville. Let's talk a little bit about Saturday, and I want to talk about the 12 noon games first. There's a team that's a little bit north of Ohio that's playing a game. No coach, but they are taking their team to play against East Carolina. Now, if they'd played East Carolina last year, I'd give them some credit for this one. But the line on this game is 36.
It must have dropped when he went on suspension. What self-imposed suspension, mind you. Self-imposed.
Yeah. We are gonna take our coach and we are going to remove him from the sidelines for East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. But he's back when we begin our Big Ten season against Rutgers the following week. So that's our punishment. I love that punishment.
I wonder if they also instituted that nobody can wear khakis on the sidelines too for those non-conference games. I mean, I mean, because you know that line dropped from like what 37 to 36 as soon as the announcement came that he won't be coaching in the East Carolina game. I mean,
well, I mean, I could coach that game and probably win it because I mean, as much as I hate them, they are very talented right now, especially at the running back position. I'm
heck, line
looking,
of scrimmage, your
yeah,
back-to-back years, best offensive line in the country. I mean,
I like Donovan Edwards a lot. This is the guy who averaged 7 yards a carry, and I know a lot of the focus went to Blake Corum because he ran for 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. So obviously that guy is good too. But Donovan Edwards, I mean, they didn't miss a beat when Blake Corum went down.
yeah,
And I'm interested to see what Edwards looks like, and then B, what Blake Corum looks like coming back from injury. What are your things to look for in this game for the Wolverines in week one?
honestly, I want to see their passing game a little bit more. I think it got real sheltered last year, and I think JJ McCarthy is. I mean, granted, the Maize and Blue faithful are talking JJ McCarthy for Heisman. I think if he's going to pull that off, he's got to be. I mean, infinitely better throwing last year. He matured as a quarterback, but he's got to take it to a whole new level. I really like the receiving core between Wilson, Johnson, and Loveland. I think Loveland really is somewhat underrated and under the radar for them. But I mean, if they're going to take it to that next level, the passing game's got to get better, especially if they want to play for that national title. So,
Yeah, well, let's pray to God that doesn't happen. um, but yeah, I did think it was interesting when they did the self-imposed penalty against those three whoppers to start the year. Game that people around here are pretty interested in is Virginia and Tennessee. That game is going to be in Nashville at Nissan Stadium where the Titans play. Vols are favored by 28. I don't know if that's more of an indictment on what people think of the Vols or what people do not think about Virginia.
Virginia's that bad.
I worry about this game getting out of hand early because Virginia wasn't good last year, and everybody that was good transferred out. So I'm concerned about this program. What about you?
Mind you, this is the first time. Remember, they had the last game of the year canceled because of the shooting that happened in Charlottesville.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what to expect from the Who's. I mean, I literally think Tennessee's going to come in and this is going to be a wallop, and I think you're going to see Joe Milton try to play long ball quite a bit of the time, just to showcase his arm. So the key is going to be who's going to be your next Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, because you can't put everything on Brew McCoy.
I agree with that. I got a question for you. I am not familiar with Tony Muskett. Okay. This is the guy who's apparently starting at quarterback for the Virginia Cavaliers. And I don't know much about him.
Honestly, until
is
you
he
mentioned
from Monmouth?
Yeah, and until you mentioned his name, I didn't even know who he was.
Okay, good.
I mean, you knew something was wrong when Brennan Armstrong up and left the program.
Yeah.
I mean, once again, NC State just keeps getting richer. But yeah, the Monmouth transfer, Tony Muskett. And yeah, he was two-time first team All Big South. But man, that's a big jump from playing in the Big South to playing against an SEC power, who beat Alabama last year, mind you.
Yeah. Yikes. I'm worried about that one. We've also got some other games at noon that are of interest to me, at least. That Colorado TCU game. We're going to get our first look at the Buffaloes under prime time. And I'm actually more interested to see what TCU looks like, in year two. I mean, we were all blown away by what TCU was able to accomplish under year one of that coaching staff. Now, we thought he would turn it around. We thought he would do a good job. Neither one of us thought he was going to take it to the national championship game in year one. What do you expect from him in year two?
I mean, everything really clicked together for them last year. But in all honesty, you look at this roster. I mean, you're hearing Dykes already talking about this is the best receiving core he ever had. And he just lost Quentin Johnson to the NFL in the
Yeah.
first round. I mean, you look at this receiving core, they did an incredibly good job bringing in transfers from the outside. Jojo Early from Alabama. I mean,
Yeah.
he was probably one of the few bright spots in the receiving core last year. John Paul Richardson from Oklahoma State. Dalen Wright from Minnesota. I mean, this is a very deep receiving core. And it's not like Chandler Morris has never started a game. Hell, he started the season for TCU
Last year
before Max Duggan came in and took over after Chandler Morris got hurt. I
Yeah.
think more so, I think we got to look at their running game. I mean, they lost a lot there, but heck, you bring Trey
Kendre
Sanders.
Miller. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kendre Miller's gone. He's playing for the Saints now. So watch. I'm glad you mentioned that because they did pick up Trey Sanders, who's also, I believe, from Alabama. And they got a lot of Bama players in here, but they went out to the portal. They hit the portal hard on defense. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys starting that are transfer players. So this is the world we live in now, James, where guys can redo this roster in 1 year easy by pulling guys out of the portal. And I think if anybody's done it, well, it's Coach Sonny Dykes in TCU. He's. I don't think there's going to be as much as a drop off as some people anticipate, just based on who they've got coming in the portal.
Well, hell, the UMass game yesterday, I heard it was reported that UMass had 27 transfers, of which a majority were from Power 5 schools.
Yeah.
27. I mean, rebuilding a program where year 3 is the really the benchmark. I'm sorry. Now it's year 2. You got to win early and quick. Otherwise, you're going to see schools cutting bait quickly.
There's no doubt about that. But I'm very interested in that game. The other games that are early that pique my interest are probably none. But there are some other games that are coming up later on in the afternoon that I'm interested to see. Obviously, Ohio State, Indiana. You knew I was going to talk about that.
Yeah,
I want to see the quarterbacks in this game. But more so, I want to see the offensive line for Ohio State. We talked to Mark Givler about that, and I've heard good things out of practice the last couple of weeks. The offensive line at times has been dominating, and I want to see if they can do it in a real game. What do you think about the Buckeyes coming in at 3:30, going to Bloomington, 30.5 point favorites in this one? What are you looking for out of the Buckeyes in week 1?
Tackle play, first and foremost. I mean, we already know they don't have much depth there. They got to keep their tackles healthy and make sure there's continuity on that offense. Who's going to end up being the quarterback in that situation? I mean, has Day finally come out and said, is it Brown? Is it McCord? Is there been a definite on that yet at all? Or not?
No. There's not been an announcement. Lots of Buckeye fans are upset about that. They feel like it's a bad thing. But I don't. I think that's a good thing. I think it means that they have 2 good quarterbacks. I don't think it means that they have 0. I think if Ohio State was worried about their quarterback, they would have gone out and got one in the transfer portal. They didn't go after anybody. They stuck right here with who they got: Devin Brown, Kyle McCord, both top 10 quarterbacks coming out of high school, and both very talented guys. Do I know which one is better right now? I do not. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think the coaches know. I don't think you're going to know until they, until they get on the field. But hell, me or you could take some snaps under center and do okay with this team around us. I mean, holy crap.
Yeah.
These wide receivers. I mean, Carnell Tate, Marvin Harrison, Julian Fleming, Ogbuka, Xavier Johnson, Brandon Ennis, Noah Rogers. There's a lot of guys to throw the ball to.
Agreed. Now, honestly, the secondary would be the other area I'd be looking at. I mean, let's be honest, the linebacking core and the front 4, pretty freaking solid. Their secondary's got to play better than they did last year. I mean, the Georgia game especially, if there was blown coverage after blown coverage, I mean, honest to God, Harrison doesn't get hurt on that obvious freaking targeting call. Ohio State wins.
Oh,
heck, if JSN even showed up, if Mayan Williams doesn't get hurt, I mean, like you keep going down the list.
Travion Henderson plays. Mayan Williams plays. Jackson Smith and Jigba plays. Marvin Harrison doesn't get hurt. I don't even want to talk about it because it's still making me sick.
Well, and you hear Georgia fans coming back, well, we had a bad game. No, freaking Ohio State had freaking your seventh stringers in positions at some points. Seventh stringers.
And they scored 43 points. So they didn't have a bad game. It was a great game, but one that I would love to erase from my memory the way that it ended. I'm still sick to my stomach. But I do think that the secondary is much improved. Denzel Burke has looked better. Sonny Styles is in his sophomore year. He's going to make some plays. Jair Brown, I think, is underrated. Lorenzo Styles, the transfer from Notre Dame, has moved to the secondary. He's going to be good. The transfer from Syracuse, Jahad Carter. This is where they did go out and get some guys. Like I said, they didn't go out and get a quarterback, but they did go out and get several corners. They got Lorenzo Styles. They got Jahad Carter. They got Davison Igbusian, son, whatever his name is, the kid from Ole Miss, who has looked really, really good all spring and all fall. And then you got Josh Proctor, Latham Ransom. Both those guys are seniors, and in Proctor's case, a redshirt senior. I feel like the secondary is going to be a lot better than it was last year. So we'll have to see what the game looks like to do that. But what other games are you looking at on Saturday that kind of stick out to you as games that you want to look at to see certain teams and what they look like?
Now there are 4 games, and they're all in that the later nights segment that kind of intrigued me. 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. That Washington State at Colorado State game intrigues me because I think Jay Norvell is really revamping that team. They did not look good last year because I think they needed a lot of work to rebuild that offense. But you look at what he did at Nevada. I'm very intrigued looking at that game. On FS1 at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, UTSA at Houston. I think Frank Harris is vastly underrated, and I think people are going to really get to see him against a now Power 5 team. Keep going down the line. You go to North Carolina at South Carolina and Charlotte. North Carolina's defense did not look good last year, and their offensive line was, let's be honest, crap. Yeah. Can they get better to protect Drake May? Otherwise, his Heisman candidacy could go out the window quick. Who's he going to throw the ball to? I know they got that transfer, that speedster from Kent State. But South Carolina is going to come to play. It's in the family pedigree. When you think they don't have much, they find a way to do more than they have. And then lastly,
one point on that game. I'm a little shocked that South Carolina, A, is an underdog in this game, and B, isn't getting any. I know they had a lot of transfers, but this is a team. Think about the way they ended the season. They beat the crap out of Tennessee. They beat Clemson for the first time in a long time. This is a team that I could, see having a good run this year. I don't know why no one talks about them.
Their offensive line is going to be the key, honestly. Getting rid of their best asset this year was addition by subtraction, and that's Satterfield leaving as their OC, going to Nebraska, and doing something better with Spencer Rattler. I feel bad for Spencer Rattler that he had to deal with Satterfield. Now, if they can get that offensive line cleaned up, honestly, not only would I take South Carolina, man, I wouldn't even need the points. I think South Carolina is going to win the game, and could be convincingly, if North Carolina's offense and defensive line don't play significantly better than they did last year.
You do know I played against Satterfield in high school, right?
Really? Marcus Satterfield?
He's from Greenback, Tennessee.
Really?
He played for like one of our biggest rivals in high school when we were back when Knoxville Catholic was a 1A school. We used to travel to Greenback and play them. We played them every year, either home or away. And he was their quarterback, and his dad was the coach. And it blows me away every time I see him on TV. I'm like, dude, that guy's from Greenback. They had like 200 kids in the whole school.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
The last game I'm interested in watching is the Coastal Carolina at UCLA game. Now, under previous examples, I would have been, hardcore on Coastal Carolina. Well, they got a new coach in Tim Beck. I mean, granted, Grayson McCall's still there, but I'm more intrigued on the post-DTR environment in Westwood. I mean, you look at that team. I mean, everybody puts so much emphasis on quarterback. Chip Kelly doesn't. He's going to win and lose with that line of scrimmage play and their running back situation, and they bring quite a bit back. And I want to see how they execute post-DTR.
From what I've heard, Dante Moore is going to be starting at quarterback.
I wouldn't be surprised in the least. And I think
that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. Now, I could be wrong, but I've heard from several of my West Coast sources that Dante Moore, the freshman, is going to start for UCLA at quarterback, which is pretty crazy considering he's the kid from Martin Luther King Jr. High School in Detroit, Michigan, who was going to Michigan and decommitted and then committed over to Chip Kelly and UCLA. So we may get to see a look at him real early.
And Carson Steele, the product out of Ball State, is, I mean, unless you're a real big football geek, you have no clue who this guy is. This is a legit running back. And behind that offensive line, this could be interesting to see what he does in Westwood this year. I mean, this is less an indictment against Coastal Carolina. I think they're going to be very good. I don't think they're going to win the Sun Belt. They're not going to be as deep as they were under the previous regime. But yeah, I really think seeing UCLA execute, it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of team we're going to have this year.
I'm interested to see it as well. And felt like DTR was the quarterback there for 6 years. Oh, wait, he was. So it's
by the way, do you know who he was not the starting quarterback his junior year at Bishop Gorman? Guess who started ahead of him?
Tate Martell.
Tate Martell. That is right.
Hey, I got the trivia question right for the day.
Tate Martell. They put DTR at wide receiver and started Tate Martell at quarterback.
Yeah, and now it looks like DTR should be the starter for the Browns.
Wow. I mean, if there was one Ryan Day screw up, man, Tate Martell would be the freaking poster child of that screw up. So.
Well, that was an Urban Meyer.
That was Urban? Oh, yeah. I thought that was Ryan Day's screw.
No, okay. that was Urban Meyer. And shit, he was like one of the top recruits in the country. So they were like happy to get him, but his tenure in Columbus was short-lived. So it should be cool. There's also some games on Sunday. Northwestern with Sands coach will be there playing Rutgers to kick off the Big Ten season. I got to imagine that's going to be a shit show for Northwestern, but I am interested on the Sunday night game. LSU is playing Florida State. That was one of the best games all year last year. Yeah. And I'm interested to see what it looks like this year. Number 5 versus number 8, Sunday, ABC, 7:30. Looking forward to that one. How about you?
I am as well.
All right. Well, college football's back, man. We made it through the off season. Thanks to some amazing guests. Otherwise, we probably would have ended our own existence. But luckily, we did have a ton of guests: Cedric Houston, Mark Givler, Raymond Harris, Eric Westmoreland, Devin Jordan, Jeff Hardings. Go back, check them all out in case you missed them. Aaron Dykes, Tony Franklin, Mose Phillips. Hell, we had a lot of great guests. So in case anybody missed any of those folks, check it out on our YouTube channel, @Man Coverage 2075. Subscribe it up, send it to your friends and relatives, and help us out there. But looking forward to week one, and enjoyed watching college football yesterday, James. I'm happy it's back.
Honestly, as soon as Notre Dame and Navy kicked off, and I am not a Notre Dame fan at all, it was just so nice to watch football.
Yeah, I like it. Like talking about it, like watching it way more. So we will see what happens in week one, and we will wrap a big red bow on week 0, buddy.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks to everybody for watching and tuning in. And as we mentioned, go check us out at Man Covers 2075 on YouTube. Subscribe and watch all the shows that you missed. We will be here next week at some point. May be out of town, so we'll talk about how that's going to go, and we will update everybody when we know.
Hey, we'll make it work.
All right, keep your chin up, bud.
Amen.
Talk to you soon.
Later.
Adios.
Bye.